Before we get started, though, I do want to provide just a quick tip in case you don't remember this, right? Is I put every morning I'm posting content on my LinkedIn profile, and that content is almost exclusively federal content that I'm sharing out there in a way that summarizes what's important. I'm trying to find stuff that's vital to you out there. So this week, for example, we've got two types of content that we're posting. One is I just posted an industry deck from the Chief Digital and Artificial Intelligence Office of DoD. So that's a huge one. That's an industry day slide around their acquisition approach. And then the other things we post every day are related to, for example, we started this new series, how to do business with a particular agency. And our goal is to actually make it less propaganda, more useful. So, we go find people's names, numbers, and emails, and we shove that in there. If there's a supplier portal, we put that there. If there's a long-range acquisition forecast you can get access to, we put it there. So it's kind of like your one-stop shop for understanding a particular agency. And we're not just sticking at the high levels. We're bouncing around when we can find a good set of information. For example, 9-week Atlantic is one we're working on to drop. We'll probably drop it Monday. But that's like a command within a command within a command kind of thing. But there's such a big spend, and there's such a big part of a lot of your market that we wanted to provide that information. So make sure you're checking out the profiles out there. All right, let's dive into the training here. Okay, so again, today we're going to be talking about some advanced capture tasks. There's a lot that capture does, and depending on the stage you're at, some of the tasks are basic. I did a training yesterday on basic capture tasks. And these are the basic pieces of information you need, right? Like basic task area or work areas, key points of contact like the KO, small business specialist, what contract vehicle, that's basic information. Advanced capture to me is when you're really understanding. So if you go through a stage that has qualified, pursue, and bid, for example, those three stages of capture before you hit proposal, to me, bid is about when you're starting to really, you locked in the team, you're starting to work together with the team on solutioning. Almost pre-proposal is what bid is to me. But pursue, that middle stage, is when you're really understanding the government customer and trying to shape that acquisition. So learn about it and shape it. The earlier you can shape it, the better. And so today I want to cover down on a couple of those. But the whole purpose of capture is to win, right? It's why we do it. I say that business development is about understanding the agency, building strategic relationships, and identifying opportunities. Capture is about taking one opportunity and shaping it in such a way and preparing your company in such a way that you have the best chance for winning. And so I'll talk about some tasks in there. But when I say winning, right, I'm talking about persuasive proposals and bringing the wow factor in. So that's really important stuff. But you can't ever do that unless you really understand the customer. And that's the purpose of today's training, is to dive deep into that. The second thing to keep in mind about capture, especially advanced capture, is that it helps you pull away from the competition. Just making up some basic facts here, 80% of your competition is just going to go to SAM or GovWin or whatever, and whatever they say is what they're going to know. They will never know anything else. And so if everybody does that, we're all on an even playing field. But the minute somebody starts doing extra work, that extra work we call capture, you're going to be able to know stuff your competition doesn't know. For example, you'll know who's really maybe the influencers. If you don't know this, when you send a proposal in, there's an evaluation board, whatever you want to call it, selection board, but a group of people who are going to decide which proposals make it and which don't, right? The contracting officer is the only one who signs a contract, but there's a bunch of people who sit there and say, are you a winner or not, right? Are you going to be able to be eligible going forward? And so something like reaching out and learning that pulls you way ahead of your competition, because they don't know that. And if they don't know that, then they don't know enough to go have meetings with those people. They don't know enough to follow them on LinkedIn to see what they're saying, so that you can weave that into your proposal, or so you can point that information out to your proposal writers and managers so they can put things in context. And so this capture activity is vital if you want to actually be different from your competitor. And we'll talk about that in a second. So today's training, we're going to talk about, actually, I got my 3 bullets here a little odd. First thing we're going to talk about is the 2 types of proposals, the way I look at proposals. The second thing is we're going to cover down on understanding and how to go after the customer pains and challenges. We call them pain points, right? Or challenges. And then the third thing we'll wrap up with is understanding the customer's objectives and goals and the impact it can have, knowing that, on you creating a winning proposal. If you haven't seen me do a previous training, I did one called, Death to P-Win, I think is what I called it. And the reason I don't like P-Win is because generally it stands for probability of winning. Well, the probability of me winning is the number of award or proposals that were submitted that are acceptable. If there's 3 or 4, then my probability is 30 or 20, 25 or 30%, right? That's different than do I know I'm submitting a winning proposal? And so I created a winning proposal score, and I did a whole training on that lays out these capture activities that can feed into that. So today I'm just covering down on 2. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. Process goes A to Z, and when we follow a process, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results. And in this case, the repeatable and predictable results that we want is to win contracts. Okay, let's talk about the 2 types of proposals. Tell me you've never seen somebody talk about proposals in this way. I describe proposals as basically compelling and compliant, right? And in this case, I was trying to figure out a way that I was describing this to somebody about how I see the difference. And so the normal way we do proposal writing is paint by numbers. It's a very compliant exercise. We're looking at every shall statement. We're looking at the eval criteria, all these kind of things, and making sure we're covering down on it. That is the normal way. 90% of us do this. We lay it out, right? And the problem with that to me is that we're all doing the exact same thing. If we all paint by numbers using the exact same paint palette, we're going to have the exact same picture. Every one of us is going to do a dandelion, not a dandelion, a sunflower. Every one of us is going to create this beautiful sunflower, and everybody will come along and look at our proposal or look at our picture that we painted by numbers and go, oh, that's a sunflower. That is a cathedral. That is a sunset. It's beautiful. Like, I'm factually saying it's beautiful. I don't feel anything when I look at this paint by number approach, right? It lacks the ability for the individual approach. If we're painting by numbers, then we look exactly like the painter who's next to us. If we're writing purely compliant proposals, then we're going to look exactly like the competitor. And that makes it very hard to distinguish ourselves from our competition among our customers. Compare that to Jackson Pollock, who basically takes some paint brushes in, dips them in a paint can, and flings them at the wall. That's how I think of it, right? If I was painting, I prefer the paint by numbers. But in proposals, I prefer this Jackson Pollock way, because when people look at the paint by numbers, they go, that's a cathedral, that's a sunflower. But when they look at Jackson Pollock type painting, they're looking at it going, well, it's this. Hey, come over here and look at this thing. It's interesting. Look how he's weaving the blue in. Is that like rivers? Is it communicating something? And the sun is just breaking through clouds, whatever, right? Whatever we see with that. But it's this painting we're talking about, we're seeing, we're really getting to understand. I like how it makes me feel. I hate the painting. It makes me feel angry, whatever, right? There's this feeling of being pulled into the Jackson Pollock painting. Even just to not like it, I'm pulled into it. But with our proposals, when we think this way and we think compelling first, right? Then we make compliance a secondary task in our proposal writing. And this is really important for me to communicate, because capture is not about compliance. Capture is trying to figure out, how can I beat my competition? How can I do whatever I can to push my competition down and me up? Right? I'm not trying to be mean to them. I'm just trying to win. But how can I do that? Right? And so I want my proposals to be compelling. In order for them to be compelling, I need to know what would make a proposal what would make this proposal compelling, right? What would my response have to look like, Jackson Pollock, in order for those requirements to be seen in this compelling way, right? And so one of the things that I do is think compelling first, persuasive first in the proposals. And when I'm diving through any of the documentation, when I'm talking to people, I'm really trying to pull information out that drives me towards that. I'm thinking solutioning kind of from the beginning. And then what I do is I put a compliance matrix on a requirements compliance matrix at the beginning of a proposal, so that I can cover down and say, hey, here's my paint by numbers, right? So I am being compliant. I am there are numbers here, but I'm doing it my way. And what I'm hoping to do is to pull them along in this journey where they feel understood. And I'll talk about this in a second, but they feel understood and they feel like ours is the most persuasive proposal. What I tell people is I want my customer or potential customer to read a proposal we submit and go, do these people work for us? Do they help write the requirement? Not wired write it, but do they understand? I just feel like they understand our needs and what we're trying to do and what we're running into. They understand it. And so when you think about proposals, I would highly recommend you consider, are you making your proposals compelling more than just compliant? Of course, all of us are going to make it compliant. We have to, but we don't have to make it compliant first. We can just do that as the end game kind of thing. Check, 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 check. And when you do that, you're going to really start finding, I believe, proposals that get some real good interaction with the customer. One thing to also keep in mind is the whole generational shift of how we are. Our attention spans are short. Think about what you personally read. Do you go in and want to read all this very structured stuff, or do you want to go in and get to the point pretty quickly? Do you skim stuff? There's ways to write proposals in that way, and it begins with just really knowing the customer, and in this case, knowing the customer's challenges and pains. What are they running into, right? There's two main things we're going to talk about. What are the challenges they're running into, and what are the objectives they want to get out of the work with you? And if you don't know really, or if you don't fully understand about pain points and challenges that the customer has, let's just talk for a second about why you should understand those, right? It isn't just an administrative thing that some boss is telling us salespeople, hey, go find out the pain points. No, why do you want to find them out? So if you, we like to say, don't sell the journey. Don't sell the journey, or don't describe the journey. Just describe Maui. I want to go to Hawaii and Maui. All I want to think about and talk about is that, sitting on the beach, etc. That's what you're getting when you buy from us. You're not getting the journey. Of course they are, right? But they don't want to hear about any of that. They want to hear about Maui. Well, if you don't know their pain point, in this case, their destination is getting rid of that pain, right? I work too hard, I'm taking a vacation. Maui is the release out there. So if you don't know what their pain points are, what they're trying to achieve, then you're just going to sell the journey. It's just going to be so vanilla of a proposal. There's this idea that people don't care what you know until they know that you care, right? People don't care what you know until they know that you care. And what this means is, of course, I want to hear what your recommendations are and your solutioning is to our needs, et cetera. But I want to know that you care. Well, how can you sit there and show them that you care before you start getting them to pay attention to what you know? One of the ways is to understand truly their pain points, their challenges, not just at a superficial level where you read it somewhere and you're like, okay, there it is. But you actually dug into it and you began to understand, well, this challenge and this pain point, is that the real challenge and pain point, or did it come from here? And I'll talk about that more in a minute when I get into the how do you really uncover the pain points and challenges. But it's really important to help them know that you care in the proposal by communicating back to them the pains that you have learned. You're showing them that you cared enough to do the research and really understand what they're doing. Okay, now I can listen or read your recommendations to us on how you would solve our need, type thing. There's this idea in sales that you really want to make sure that you understand what problem your company solves. I was just talking to somebody who's in our community here, and they have an agile DevSecOps type company, software development. And when I look in, you can see what kind of solution that they have and the problems that they have. They even communicated on their website, hey, these are the problems that you kind of run into, and this is what we solve. When you know that, you know what questions to ask, et cetera. And so your solution, when you're responding to even if you have a product, when you're responding to an RFP or whatever, your solution stops a pain. It gives them, it meets a need and it stops a pain. And so by doing this capture activity of understanding the pain points and the challenges, you'll fully understand what their pains and challenges are and be able to align your solution to it. This is an early stage thing where you really must understand what you're selling. I push this a lot about, you need to have that clear focused offer and then understand what problems and pain points it solves. And then you begin to, sales is about beginning to uncover those. So let's talk about how you can do this. I put 8 different ways here of how you can find implied needs as you move forward. One of the things to keep in mind, actually, I gave you 7 things with one guidance. So bullet number 1, I say, look for implied needs as well as explicit needs. If you go somewhere, let's say the PWS or something, they might have an exact challenge need or something. We need this, and that's fine. But all of your competitors will see that as well. We see it because I come in here and it says needs. It has a heading, it says needs, let's say, and 3 bullets. You're like, all right, there's their 3 needs. Those are called explicit needs. Implied needs are ones that are woven throughout the whole rest of the document. When they talk about they're looking for a particular set of a task area, and you begin to read that task area and you see some of the things they're doing, you can imply or you can uncover those implied needs by understanding what that work is they're trying to do. So an implied need, the reason it's really important is because what you want to do is to start getting your customer to see it as an explicit need. And I'll come down to that in a minute, but that's the meetings you have. When you go in there, you can explore that a little bit more. If you did what I said early on, which is know who the selection board is or know who some of the key players are who are going to evaluate your proposal during capture, you can try to get in there and talk to them about some of those implied needs that your company has that solution for. And so you're increasing those as well. But even if you don't get them increased completely, when you're writing a response, you'll be able to reference those implied needs because somebody who contributed to the RFP or the PWS, somebody who contributed to that has that need. Another way that you can, so one of the first ways you can find implied needs, explicit needs, et cetera, is to look in the RFI and the RFP, right? This is pretty straightforward. RFI is a little looser unless they give you a draft PWS. But the minute you start getting a PWS, a statement of objectives, statement of work, the minute you start getting those type of documents, you'll see the challenges and pain points woven in there a little bit. This is what we're trying to, address, et cetera. There's not as much about their challenges in a PWS. You'll see some of it, but I'll talk about objectives in a minute, but there's a lot more about what we want than what we're running into. That's a competitive advantage that you can put in place is if you can begin to uncover it. And that's why I'm saying, if you look in those RFI and RFP documents, you'll find implied needs all throughout the document. And then you go back to the customer, the program office, and you try to have those conversations. So a second way that you can learn about pain points and challenges is industry day briefings. So if you just go into an industry day brief or you attend an industry day, they'll talk about, depending on the agency, they'll talk about the challenges they're facing. And the ones that I love the best are the ones that also say, this is what we're looking for from industry, right? So it's important to look in there. Annual reports are another one. Annual reports that I put down, OIG, reports of management challenges. Most agencies have an OIG that puts out, here's the top management challenges. Sometimes even the GAO, the Government Accountability Office, they'll put out reports about a larger agency or department. But in these 2 type of documents, management challenges, that's an official title, so just search that, or annual reports, many agencies have strategic plans and annual reports. So here's what we're going to do, and here's what we did do. And there's always a year in between that's missing, but it doesn't matter because in the government, they move so slow. But in those annual reports, they'll talk about what we did. We're excited. Here's the things we ran into. Here's what we're experiencing as challenges or pain points or what we wish we had done. Those are all challenges. OIG reports are even way better because they literally are, these are the challenges we're running into. So you want to find those documents on any opportunity you have. This should be a task that says, go find the industry day brief, an annual report, the management challenges. So then 5 and 6 are about talking with, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are all about talking with people. You need to get out and have meetings. So the first basic task you want to do is to find small business professionals and contracting or acquisition professionals within your target customer for that opportunity you're pursuing. You want to get in there and have conversations. They're not going to know a ton about the needs or the challenges, but they'll have had some conversations and you can explore some of it. But when you get into number 6, where you're starting to talk with incumbents and teaming partners, this is where you can start figuring out what's going on in there. What are you hearing? One of the big problems that incumbents have is they know too much about all the problems and they try to address them too much. But if you can learn from them, if you can have conversations and begin to write them down, then you can follow back up with the program office and go, are these really problems? Or are those just problems somebody else thinks you have? And teaming partners, the whole reason you're choosing a teaming partner on an opportunity is that they can help you do capture. It's not so they can help you deliver. It's so they can help you write proposals and they can help you do capture. And so those teaming partners, they can either bring agency intimacy or knowledge to you, and they can talk to you about it, or you can send them off and say, hey, go find this out, see if we can learn more about their challenges. And then the 7 and 8 are the best, right? So I saved those for the best on how do you really learn about customer pain points and challenges. If I don't meet with a program office on a particular opportunity, then I don't feel pretty strong about our competitive chances, right? Maybe no one's getting in there, and that's one thing. But when you meet with the program office, you're meeting with what we call the focus of dissatisfaction, the people who are dissatisfied with the way it's going. Either there's problems or there's needs that are being not met, new goals, et cetera. And so when you meet with a program office, you can get in there and have these conversations. And number 8 is about the program office customers. This is really important. I'm going to talk about this as it relates to those spin questions I'm mentioning. But the program office, let's say it's the IT department, they're serving business units throughout an agency. That agency has a mission. And if you're looking at the IT department basically is not executing the mission. The IT department is enabling the rest of their organization and colleagues to execute the mission. Think about an IT in the Army. They're not fighting the war. It's the soldier who's on the ground, right? But they all work together. And we contractors, we work with the IT department to support the mission. And so understanding downstream, whether it's going to the HR department or going to the soldiers in the woods or whatever, talking to them about the problems they're running into allows you to kind of bring it back. And again, talk to the pain points and challenges that are experienced by the customer that you're going after. I teach a whole set of training on how do you go in and ask questions, how do you go in? But the methodology you want to track is spin selling methodology, which I have right here, and it stands for situation, problem, implication, and needs payoff. And the idea is that you use these type of questions and you weave them back and forth. You don't just go through each one of them once. You're weaving it back in your discussion. And the part I want you to pay attention to is the P and the I, problem questions and implication questions. Problem questions allow you to uncover problems specific to, for example, the program office. What are some of the problems you're running into? Okay, so you said you're running into servers crashing all the time, et cetera. Well, who else is impacted by that, right? So implication questions is who else is impacted or experiencing the downside of the challenges? If the IT department has servers that are going down, they, of course, have problems and they want to address them. But who else is impacted? Well, the soldiers in the field, right? I used to work, one of my customers was the White House, and we supported the teams that went out into the field, so the presidential teams, to prepare the different places he's going to go or she's going to go, right? And they would be out there. And so if the technology back here went down, well, we'd have to fix it. So people were without emails, but these people in the field were without vital communication back to the White House, understanding threats, blah, blah, blah. And so when you do that, you build the problem up much bigger than just a server. You help them understand that the presidential mission is at risk because the servers go out, if that analogy or story made sense. So let's talk about customer objectives last here. And this is the yin and the yang to problems, right? If there's challenges and pain points we have, there are objectives and goals. What do we want to do? Where are we trying to go? And it's not just we want to fix that problem. Literally, we want to go to the next level, right? And so again, with this idea of the journey in Maui, you need to understand where the customer is trying to go. That's Maui. How they get there is the least interesting thing to them. They just want to have confidence that you're going to get there. A friend of mine, Tim, yesterday was telling me, we were talking about proposals, and he says, yeah, what I like to do is right in that first page, go, here's Maui, right? I'm putting words into his mouth a little bit, but here's Maui, here's what we're going to do. And then in the write-up, I'm like, look, I'm going to talk to you about the key steps to getting to Maui and making Maui a reality. But this proposal is about getting you to Maui. It's not about how great we are in boat safety and all this other stuff, or airplane safety. And so the idea of understanding objectives and goals is you understand what their Maui is. That's really important, right? Don't just take it for granted that it's in the document. You really want to understand and make sure you're having conversations that lead to that. And that allows your proposal to speak to what they really want instead of just being focused on this compliance exercise of shall statements, right? So I put down the exact same path for how do you find objectives and goals. I have actually done an entire separate training on challenges, an entire separate training on objectives and goals. So you can find those in our previous training. We've done 300 trainings and you have access to the replay. But one of the biggest things that I wanted to just help you understand is this idea of going back to understanding their goals and objectives. And I put down here with spin questions, example, the PLMS lab. I used to support the Department of Veterans Affairs, and I supported at the hospital level, so many hospitals around the country. And one of the solutions we built was to help the test results turn around faster when somebody would do it, like a blood test. It would come into the pathology and laboratory medicine services. I think that's what that stood for, but pathology and laboratory medicine services. It would come in there, and there'd be this time it took to be in there. And so we built a solution to help move things along faster, basically. And if we had just stayed in that thinking, the objective and the goal was to get tests done faster, but that wasn't it. Vets were getting sicker or even dying because the results were going into the lab and taking too long to come back out. When we were able to help them get it back out, doctors were able to help the veteran. And in the VA, everything starts and stops with the veteran care, right? And so it's really important to uncover these objectives and goals. So then we can speak in there and say, not only can we, if I was writing a proposal around that, not only can I help you get results turn around faster in your lab, but I'm speaking to the fact of why that's important. Because then when you have these different people reviewing it, they're like, damn, they get us. They understand that that's actually what we want. We don't want some SharePoint solution. We don't want some lab testing speed thing. We want better veteran healthcare. And when you understand objectives, your proposals will be able to communicate that same level of understanding about what your customer is trying to accomplish. So here's what I want you to remember from today's training, right? It's really vital for you to be able to know and speak to your customers' pains, the pain points and challenges, as well as the objectives and goals they're trying to achieve. When you do that, you will show them that you care. Then they will care about what you know, right? So my piece of advice to you is use the spin selling methodology. Again, I have training specifically on that. I think I have like 5 or 10 different trainings on how to ask the right questions, how to ask problem questions and implication questions. Learn this methodology. It makes your whole life go easier. And it's part of the training I did around the call plan as well. Like using a call plan when you go into a meeting, you have the spin selling questions that will help you uncover objectives, objectives, goals, pain points, and challenges. So hopefully that made sense. Let me know if you need any clarity on it, if you want me to dive deeper into any topic. I know these are getting into a little bit more advanced capture activities. If you're a company looking to work with us, thinking about working with us, happy to talk with you, but only after you've done at least 10 of our trainings, including some of the ones on process, the process I teach, because I don't need to teach you that in a call, right? I'd rather you learn that and decide you like that. And then I also am looking for companies that are doing 2 million or more, because it is an investment on your part to work with us. And these trainings are for the masses, right? I really want to make sure we're training everybody on how to do what I know how to do. So anyways, reach out on LinkedIn and direct messaging if you're interested. For all of us, remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. Part of the process is to have a good weekend. Today is Friday, the 23rd of June, and I'm going to go have a good weekend. I'll see you in the next training.